What's up, my man?
Michael, you were 1 minute early today.
I know. I'm really on top of the game lately. That's 2 times in a row I've been right on time early.
Yeah, what is your record?
2.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's ongoing right now, yeah. So you're pretty pumped about this guest today, huh? I guess you already met him. Why don't you tell that quick story about how you met him and what he's up to?
Oh, yeah. Although I am not a social media, I'm not on very many social media platforms. I am on Twitter, and gosh, I don't know, maybe last, I guess 2 Sundays ago, I think, saw a little Matt Fitzgerald call out for a run, and it had just happened to be Overland Park, Kansas, which shockingly enough is where I live, and reached out to him, and I was fortunate enough, we both met up for a run the following day. I probably should categorize it as a shuffle. I'm not sure he would categorize like that, but he had just come off a marathon plus a few miles, I believe, 2 days before. So I was actually able to keep up with him, and then had lunch with he and his beautiful wife, and we talked about running and triathlon and all things life, pretty much. And it was really cool. He is on a seemingly like a cross country trip of doing 8 marathons in 8 weeks. And if I remember correctly, I'm sure he'll correct me in a second if I'm wrong, it's kind of to jumpstart a book he's doing called The Mystique of the Marathon.
Can I correct you?
Absolutely.
And there he is. Welcome, Matt.
Not that it matters much at this point.
I had such a big intro planned for you, too.
Well, we can, I just don't want to lose the chance. Like I said, it hardly matters at this point, but life is a marathon.
Life is a marathon.
Life is a marathon, yes.
That's close. Mystique, life.
Mystique.
They're both
it has a
mystical things.
Has a ring to it. I might switch it.
No, that's all good. I just leave it like you have it.
Robbie, you write that one, The Mystique.
Okay, done. Oh, it can be the sequel that nobody will read after he does the first one.
Oh, man. All right, Matt Fitzgerald. I think we're going to kind of focus on nutrition here because you probably have a quick, concise, and clear solution for all Ironman triathletes. Is that correct? Like you can put in a bucket, maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah, I don't think you've overpromised there.
Oh, man. How many books have you written now? I've counted over 20. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's creeping toward 30. Man, I don't know the exact number.
That is really impressive, and I got to tell you, one of the most impressive things that I read in your bio was that you started as a comedic poet. Is this?
Yeah. Now
this has got my attention.
Well, yeah, I've always since I first started writing in school, I've loved to write, and the first, genre that really jumped out to me, because when you're a little kid, you your mother reads Dr. Seuss and Shel Silverstein to you, and so those are my first influences. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that, and I just, for some reason, I kept doing it. I think when I was like maybe 12, I wrote a booklet of poems, had them photocopied, and sold them door to door in my neighborhood so I could save up to buy a Lego set. So I was doing stuff that most 12-year-olds don't do.
Wow, that is outstanding. I think Stephen King actually did something similar, not with poetry, but the door-to-door thing. So you want to give us a little update on how your legs are holding up with this 8 marathons in 8 weeks? Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's different every day. I've done 4 of the 8. Boston's around the corner. That'll be number 5. So overall, my legs are good. It's a different story every day. I'm not sure how they were doing when I ran with Robbie, but I would have been complaining about something, I'm sure. And I can guarantee that as soon as actually we finish talking, I'll do today's run, and it'll be something else that I'm complaining to my dad about. I'm actually visiting my parents in Rhode Island right now. My dad will ride his bike alongside me. I did actually a track workout. I was in New York City last night, and I did one of those call out type of things. Ended up running with this this Manhattan-based club called Black Roses, New York City, and they just happen to be doing their Tuesday night track session. I haven't done any fast running in literally like 8 months, so I just got thrown to the wolves, and so I've got an Achilles that always balks when I do something stupid like that, and so it's balking today. Otherwise, I'm pretty good, honestly.
That's awesome, man. Are you I mean, so you don't do a lot of track workouts? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's just what happened was I did a marathon last December, and then I knew I had this thing coming up, so I dialed it back for a little bit, started to ramp up again, and just had some problems. I was kind of doing a little Humpty Dumpty routine, falling apart in various ways. So whenever that happens, I usually can do as much slow running as I like. And because I'm not racing these marathons, that was okay with me. I just needed to keep some kind of volume up. So I just played it conservative and didn't bother to do anything faster than like a marathon race pace. So that's why, it's like I love running fast. I love hitting the track, but it just wasn't in the cards, given my situation over the past few months.
So before we dive too much into the 30-second guaranteed nutrition plan, give us our listeners kind of a backstory besides your early stint as a door-to-door salesman when you were 12, and we could rattle off all your books, but how you got into it, some of the books maybe you're the most proud of, and the ones people have heard about, to kind of give our listeners a little bit of context. Sure.
Well, I grew up in New Hampshire mostly, and my dad is actually a writer as well. So I think that's maybe I got it from him. And he ran marathons back in the 80s, and I definitely got my interest in running from him. They were sort of parallel interests that didn't intersect all that much until a couple of years after college. I moved to California and got a job with a startup multi-sport magazine. It was actually called Multi-Sport. So that's when running and endurance kind of came together, like sort of, distinct passions that were fused and have been from that point on. And I've been on that path ever since. I think most people think of me as, like a quote unquote expert, someone who knows things about training and diet and the psychology of endurance. But I still very much consider myself a writer first. So if you look at the library of books I've produced over the past 15 years or so, you'll see an evolution where I've just kind of maybe found my voice, found my thing. So the things that I am most proud of are among the more recent books that I've done. I think I hit my stride with Iron War, which I believe you've read, Robbie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one's more narrative. It's not really a how-to type of book. I'm just telling, a great true story from triathlon history. And I enjoyed working on that so much. I get a lot of good feedback from people who've read it. So I've been sort of trying to, I've wanted that to be kind of my shtick ever since. Like I still have an interest in the how-to stuff. So we'll get into my latest book, I believe. So I still do that. There was one called 80-20 Running that came out, I think 3 years ago. That's more of like a nuts and bolts training book. And I really do enjoy finding the needs that are out there, because as an athlete myself, as a coach myself, I'm always running into problems that I realize no one has written a book to solve. Racing weight is a great example of that. If you get 5 triathletes together, sitting down and chatting, inevitably they start complaining about their body fat percentage, and the non-triathletes in the room will look at them like they're crazy because they're the leanest people in the room. But
yeah,
that's why I wrote that book, because that need was there, and there wasn't a book already about it.
Wow, that is interesting. I was going to ask you. You mentioned if there was a lot of pressure to be kind of quote unquote called a nutritional expert in the field of endurance, or does your pursuit of the curious pursuit kind of take care of that? Is that sort of, what I mean? Like, is there a lot of people always coming to you for the answers, and there's just so many different ways to look at things?
Yeah, that my perspective on it is a little different. I'm constantly afraid of either being perceived as a fraud or just like, there's a lot of skepticism out there. And whenever I write about nutrition, I feel like half the battle is to kind of present the information I want to present. And the other half of the battle is just to be convincing or to distinguish myself from all the other people out who I know are out there presenting contradictory information. It's a real struggle for anyone who's in this space trying to do, essentially what I'm trying to do. There's so much, there's information overload, so much contradictory information, and people just don't know whom to trust.
What do you? That's a great point, and because there is so much so much chaos when it comes to pretty much training and nutrition with a new it thing coming out every week. What do you feel from like a nutrition standpoint? What do you feel is kind of the biggest the past year or two? One of the biggest issues when combating these new trends that'll probably be gone in about a year or two, as far as when you do talk to athletes or write articles or stuff that you want to include in a book. What do you feel like has been like one of the more challenging aspects of that?
Well, the big trends are, and a lot of them they aren't. Most of them have been around in different forms for a while, and probably will be. They might take different names or permutations, but you've got the various low carb philosophies, and high fat versions of low carb diets that are all the rage, especially among trail and ultramarathon runners now. Veganism and vegetarianism, have a lot of converts in the endurance space still. The folks like Rich Roll and Scott Jurek are highly influential vegan endurance athletes, also highly successful vegan endurance athletes. You have things like paleo and other diets that forbid food groups, no sugar, no grain. So it's just those are the main ones.
And out of those, I mean, do you have without going, do you have opinions on stuff like that, or do you think it's just all kind of depends on the person or the approach? I mean, is it too vague to state what you think about some of those diets, or?
No, I mean, they are not what I offer. So when an athlete who's looking for help comes to me and says, should I, do you think I should try this, or do you think I should try that? My answer is no. It's, there's a longer answer, which is yes, veganism or paleo or whatever works for some endurance athletes, but my job is to give you the highest chance of success with your diet. And that's not it. I would much rather point you to the guy who won the last race you did, and say, just eat what that dude eats, because it's not paleo.
Yeah, that's great, man. So do you have a thought just on that same tip on the because I've been doing it lately and I just don't, I kind of like it and it sort of feels like something's going on, but I haven't been doing it long enough. But just like doing the butter, coffee, oil thing, do you have a stake on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where, I love my coffee, and I guess I'm kind of a purist. Robbie can vouch for this. There's that line in Airplane when the little girl on the plane says, "I like my coffee like I like my men." And so I'm the same. I mean, women, but
yeah, I know.
But I like them both black.
Okay. So you see no value in I don't know. I just wondered maybe if it was sitting with me well because I'm from Wisconsin and I grew up on so much dairy. I mean, do you think there's those kind of things play in though? Your DNA and heredity and stuff like that?
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, that's incontrovertible. Like there are certain genes that make people run pretty darn well on higher fat intakes, and there are other genes that make it just a no-go zone for other people. I mean, something like the bulletproof coffee thing, like nobody needs to do that, but some people certainly can, can get away with it. So for me, it's just, I like my coffee like I like my women. So that's the reason I don't do it. Not because I think it's stupid or counterproductive.
I do think it's kind of ridiculous.
Okay. Now I have permission to say it too.
Yeah, I think it's totally ridiculous, the whole bulletproof coffee thing. But hey, I think it's a great marketing trend. I don't know the guy personally, but I remember when it first came out and he was publishing all these things about how much how healthy he got when he started doing this, and then if you continue to actually read the entire article, which most people don't do these days, listen, if you could probably put 3 scoops of butter in your coffee and do the same workout regime and still lose this X amount of weight that he did based on where he was before. But anyway, yeah. So I think it's great branding, and people like to. I do find it fascinating, and I'm sure you have a take on this as well, how much people like to attach themselves to a nutrition trend. Like it's almost like a religious thing, I found, especially being operating a gym. You find people like when you talk about being vegan or paleo or strictly just gluten-free, or these people with their bulletproof coffee, or the ketogenic diet, which is now like the new thing to do. I always find it fascinating how defensive people get about their food. And I would like to get your take on why do you think that is, and especially why you think it's kind of reached, I think, kind of its height, or maybe it's just our exposure to it here lately.
Yeah, I share that fascination, and in fact, I wrote an entire book about it. You say religion. The book is called Diet Cults, and I think that hits even closer to the mark. In the book, what I do is I go back deep into history and show sort of where those emotional and identity based and even moral attachments to ways of eating come from, and it's really it's plausible that the earliest human moral system centered on food choices. Because we are omnivorous, but we were always as a species sort of always expanding our diet, like trying new things, and of course that couldn't have always gone well, right? We must have tried things. I give some examples in the book of 2 fruits that looked and smelled almost identical, and one of them would kill you and the other one would nourish you. So, when things went wrong, probably, what happened was rules were made. It's like, you don't eat that. Like, that's not good for you. And then, of course, cultural identities would coalesce around like taboos and, we do eat this, we don't eat that. But, other cultures may have made different choices. You look at like the kosher eating laws. A lot of people sort of assume that the ancient Jewish dietary laws were based in, exigencies of health, but they really weren't. They were just entirely about defining Jews as distinct from other people. And I think this is really nothing new. It's just like humans have always sort of, invested their identity in food and even used it as a moral compass. It's just now we do it in a much less honest way, I think, where we actually do pretend it's all about health and that it's like it's scientific and rational. It's like, I chose this diet because it's the only good diet and I'm right. And, if you eat a different way, it's because you're stupid or uninformed. And like none of that's true. If you talk to, the truly credible kind of mainstream nutrition scientists out there, they will say there is no one best way to eat. Like there are certainly things you can't get away with doing, but like, these ideas that, this is the one true way for all people to eat are bogus.
Wow. Wow. So is at the basis of that some sort of psychology maybe? Because I'm sure that most of people that go onto these trends, and I can say this firsthand, where a lot of times you start something new like that, or you feel like that's the answer, you believe it, then it does seem like it works. And then, I'd like to know the track record of how many people actually stay with that 2 or 3 or 4 years or something like that. Is that kind of part of it?
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of people, when they look at the title of that book, Diet Cults, they sort of assume that I'm bashing all of the popular and fad diets and saying they don't work. And that's absolutely not what I do at all. I'm just saying, like, their claims, the dogma on which they are based is BS, but that doesn't mean necessarily that they're bad diets. And the dogma serves a purpose, because changing your diet, I mean, if you want to eat healthy or eat by, any sort of strict rules in today's context, when fast food 10 times a week is the norm, you're swimming upstream. It's a difficult thing to do. So it actually is very helpful. I think this is what you were getting at, to have to believe in it, to drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and really believe that you have found the one true way and you are going to get results, because that gives you the motivation to see it through. Because we're not, humans are not, entirely rational creatures. So we need those sorts of, emotional attachments and motivators.
What before, because I do want to get into talking about the book and your current journey you're going on right now. Because I know you work with a lot of athletes and have done this for a very long time, and we get emails all the time about talk about nutrition, and we won't put you on the spot, but as far as like, what have you always seen as like your general best practices for endurance racing? And obviously you can't lump everybody into a category. And then maybe even biggest mistakes you see a lot of, uninformed or even informed athletes make when they take on an event like a long distance ultra or an Ironman.
Yeah, so if I have a shtick, it really is eat like the elites. It's as simple as that. They have a certain way of eating. That's what the endurance diet, my new book, is all about. There are consistent patterns that are practiced at that level, and for whatever reason, recreational athletes are doing something completely different. And I think actually part of it, to get back to the Colts thing, is that the way the elites eat, it's not sexy. You know what I mean? It's just high quality, normal food. and so it doesn't really get people all that excited, or, there's no way to market it really, which maybe my publisher doesn't want me to say.
We can edit that. Don't worry.
But, it's like, for when I researched this book, I spent, a year and a half just, at the dinner table with elite endurance athletes all over the world. And when you first look at what's on their plate, it just seems like, yeah, okay, that's just how people eat. But then it kind of takes a closer look before you realize that it is a sort of super high quality version of normal. That is what they do. And I think, there are very good reasons for that. I think it really is sort of the safest and overall most effective way for most endurance athletes to eat.
In that vein, is there, because a lot of people want to put a lot of calories in or whatever and think that's going to give them more energy. Now, do elite athletes, is there something to be said for just being in better shape? You get more energy, rather than eating and like always putting all that emphasis on the food and everything like that?
Yeah, I'd actually never quite thought about it that way, but I think that is very true. People look for solutions in things other than fitness where they should look for it in fitness all the time. I was recently interviewed by some, I think, UK Men's Health magazine or running magazine, and they wanted me to give them my best hacks on recovery. First of all, I hate that term. And
Preach.
Please keep going.
and second, I said, because recovery is very much on my mind, doing these 8 marathons in 8 weeks, and I believe the key to recovery is just being fit. Foam rolling and ice baths and things like that, don't put too much stock in any of that stuff. Recovery is built in. Your body does it. It just needs time and inactivity, or, relative inactivity, and it takes care of itself. And and food. But, just stimulating your muscles and compression. I'm not saying you can't get, the marginal benefits from that stuff, but if you really want to boost your recovery, get super fit. Yeah. You'll get much better recovery. That's the heavy lift right there. And I think it's the same thing on the energy front. I think you're absolutely right. Though again, I hadn't really thought about it that way.
I just quickly, because the reason that came to me is because I noticed that as I got to be in better shape as a runner, I just sort of needed less water, I thought. And you know what I mean? Like I didn't feel as thirsty when I was done. Not that I didn't need the water, but I'm just saying I wasn't just dying for thirst, And I noticed that kind of get to that point where I wasn't always reaching for as much water as I might have used to be. But I guess that applies to food as well, and on course race bars and whatever else.
Yeah, I remember someone, it was like a second degree of separation type of thing. Like someone was telling me about this other athlete who had a theory that no one should ever bonk in any race, that like any time you got tired, it was because you hadn't taken in enough calories, that it was like you could basically run around the earth forever if you just kept taking in calories. Like there are people who believe that.
Oh my God! So I mean, when you and I met up, a little over a week ago, although I, besides just totally butchering the future title of your book, the reason you started it, I thought was in how our conversation went, and kind of the overall context you're kind of wanting to put behind the book. I thought it was absolutely incredible. And just I think it's going to be a great read, and I think it will really hit people in a lot of ways. And if you could just kind of touch on, why you're even doing this, and what kind of, from a man who's written a lot of books on a very wide variety, why this one, why now, and for what?
Right. So yeah, again, the title that now may not be the title because of you. Life is a marathon. We've all heard that expression, but just from my perspective, having been a runner my whole life, I really believe it. I think you can go really deep exploring that metaphor, and I've always been struck by I'll go back to a famous quote from the Czech runner Emil Zatopek. I think this is what I gave you when I was trying to explain the concept. But way back, he was a great runner from the late 40s, early 50s, and he said, if you want to run a mile. If you want to experience a different life, run a marathon. And anyone who has, especially people who've done more than one, they know that's true. It's just it transforms you, partly because I think a lot of people, they're looking for something when they take on that type of challenge. But it's amazing how many people find what they're looking for in that journey, even if it's very different things that they're actually looking for. So I really wanted to write a book that sort of explored very deeply the kind of uncanny, life-changing power of running marathons. Also, just endurance challenges in general. But the marathon does have a special mystique, which I think is, I use that word and it lodged in your head, Robbie. So for me, so in this book, I'm sort of what I wanted to do. I didn't want it to be all about me. I have a story to tell about what running has done for me. But I also wanted to include the stories of other people, and that's I'm meeting other runners and learning their stories along the way. Mine is what gave me a sense of urgency to kind of talk about myself and my life in this book in a way I never have before. Is that when I was a young runner, I was mentally weak. I was physically gifted, but I kind of caved in whenever I was sprinting to the finish line for the win with some other athlete who always seemed to just be able to dig deeper than I did. And I very much thought of myself literally as a coward, and I quit running because of it. I could not take the pain that you had to be able to withstand to be the best. Got back into the stuff later, and I wanted to get that monkey off my back. I think no man likes to view himself, or a woman for that matter, as a coward. So that's really more than like setting PRs and winning age group prizes. That's what I wanted, is to, prove my courage to myself. So as this journey went on, I got married to my beautiful wife, Nataki, whom you mentioned and met, Robbie. And in 2004, Nataki was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she had been sort of unraveling psychologically for about a year or more up to that point. And it's anyone who's been touched by this illness, it's terrible. It's just, not only for the person who's suffering from it, because you really kind of lose yourself. And that it's one thing to like have, arthritis where it's pain, but when it's your brain, when it's your mind, you really, and I'm taking these words from how Nataki expresses what it's like, is that you lose who you are. But the spouses or the support system, the family are very much affected as well. And and so this is, well over a decade that we've been, dealing with this together. And, my soul has been tested through these experiences in ways that go way beyond hitting the wall in a marathon. But, I'm thankful to say, Nataki's been stable for more than 3 years now. We've kind of come out the other side, kind of gotten a second wind to extend the marathon metaphor. And so that affords me an opportunity to kind of look back and appreciate, I say to myself all this time, I don't know if I could have survived all of this if I hadn't been a runner. And I say that with trepidation because I think it almost sounds trivializing, like comparing a sport to something as deep and awful as mental illness. But it is true to my experience to say that. Like I thank God that that I did, because I did gain that strength through going back again and again to try and find the courage that I lacked as a young athlete. So it's kind of a two-way street that, being an athlete, an endurance athlete, helped me be the husband my wife needed to be in, let's face it, a type of disease that often leads to homelessness and jail for a lot of people. It's that serious. But it also went sort of the other way. I think that being tested in those ways by wanting to be there for Nataki and never giving up on her, it also made me a stronger athlete, because when I do hit the wall in a marathon now, it's like, this is nothing. You know what I mean? Like, whereas it used to seem like the worst thing in the world to me, now it's like, whatever, I'll just, the finish line's 4 miles away. Suck it up.
Wow. You there, Robbie?
Mike? Yeah, go ahead, Mike. I know you got a question.
No, I actually was going to suggest that you jump in here with kind of, what you were talking about together or through that email a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally, I totally 100% agree. As you know, and as you were talking, I was before you answered my question, before I asked it, was, do you feel like the relationship is symbiotic? And I 100% think it is. As far as, for me, it was when I was going through my issues and getting sober and dealing with some traumatic stuff. It was like, I relied back on my experience of being an endurance athlete and the mental pain and physical pain and the dedication and stuff I needed to do to kind of just put my nose to the stone and grind my way through. And then on the flip side, it's the exact opposite. I now when I'm doing an event or something, I can revert back to that. So you use them for totally different reasons now. But as you said, it has made you, being in the position now has made you a better runner versus before you feel like running made you a better husband and partner. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is true to my experience, as I say.
Yeah, I mean, it's why it's been the same for me. And, I think that, and I agree. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just a sport and it can't make you, this and that. And, I always find that those people don't participate in sports. And I feel, for me, playing team sports is one of the, I think everyone should, I think two things people should always do. You should always encourage your kids to play a team sport. And I always think you should get your children to at least wait tables for a year. I think those two things actually will teach you just about as much about life and people and dealing with people as you need. But there's always there's a sports metaphor for everything. And, just recently, I mean, I think I even texted both of you about the article they put out in Runner's World about running and how the new research is saying it helps people deal with depression and addictions and stuff. And while I'm not ready to jump in that bandwagon, I do feel like there's the benefits and the feeling I know personally when I go for a run it's sometimes, honestly, it feels like almost religious, to be honest. Especially when I'm going through a hard time, or just getting out on a Sunday morning, going for a long run, and I find myself in a totally different zone. And I don't even know if you can quantify that or put that into a proof that running does make you this or that. And but for me, I know in my experience, it has done way more good than it does bad. And I think that when it comes to mental illness and the stigma that a lot of people are unfortunately stuck with when it comes to mental illness or any kind of addiction is that they can't do these kind of things, or they can't have support like someone like yourself to talk about it. And I just think in general, what you're doing and being open and talking about it, and your wife, I mean, as courageous as that is to share her story and be open and willing for you to share some of it, I believe is going to really touch a lot of people. And it's personal to me, and so I think it's wonderful what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. And I should add that an element of this, in addition to sort of being open and sharing this stuff, I'm also trying to help out a particular organization that I've kind of partnered with. That this is what they do is try to remove barriers to effective treatment and of mental illness. They're called the Treatment Advocacy Center. They're based in DC. I got to visit their offices and meet with them when I passed through DC. It's cool. So I'm just getting started in this journey. I told the people I met with there, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I know that I want to do this because I've always been a sort of, I've never been a joiner. I've always been the kind of person who just, I work out alone. Like, I just, just one of those people who's like, stays in his lane, and so this is a kind of a new mission for me, but I believe in it deeply. So people who, if you want to join the cause, Treatment Advocacy Center, maybe in your show notes, I have a page where you can actually donate in the name of the Life is a Marathon project.
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely hook that up. I mean, that is just you guys were just talking kind of about how, and again, all I do is based on how I feel, but when you talk about running like that, sometimes I get very emotional running, and I don't know if it's just stuff that's trying to get out. And you talk about, that Robbie kind of hinted at, does it heal depression or low states or whatever like that? And I'm not, like standing in a corner and saying for sure it does, but I really sometimes get into these places when I'm running. I mean, it feels amazing. It's almost like there's some kind of release going on and helping me get through a wall of a mental wall, sort of, more than just a physical wall. Is that kind of stuff that you're out running 8 marathons in 8 weeks? I mean, do you get into that place ever?
Absolutely, and in fact, maybe in this journey now more than ever, but in slightly different ways, because I am, as I hinted at just a moment ago, I'm kind of an introvert, but my I'm really pushing the connecting with others angle in this one. So it's happening in a different way. For example, in that marathon I did, the one that ended up being a 30-mile marathon for me on the trails of Kansas, which is not flat.
It is not flat. Thank you.
Yeah, right. But there was there were parts of that race where I sort of formed a little team with 2 of the other runners who were toward the front, and this was a crazy marathon. There were like chest high water crossings, one of which was a borderline rapids. I almost got swept away in it, and one of these 2 guys I was with, like, shot out an arm, almost like he could feel me slipping behind him.
Wow.
Grabbed onto me and pulled me to the shore. But we almost became like a single entity. You know what I mean? It was just like there was almost, it went beyond communication. Like we would change the lead in ways that were completely logical without saying a word to me. I didn't know these guys. They knew each other. And then, after the race, we ended up, just chatting like, and again, this is a dangerous analogy, but sort of like war buddies. You know what I mean? It's like we'd like been through the trenches together and come out the other side. And there was just like this kind of ineffable bond. So usually, the moments, you're referring to are solitary, and I've certainly had plenty of those, but there are definitely different dimensions to it. And anyway, this whole magic is exactly the thing that I'm trying to explore in the book. And yes, a little bit scientifically, but mostly not, because I don't want to, kill and dissect the very thing whose living essence I'm really trying to capture in this thing.
Yeah, I think, Mike, to what you were saying is, for me at least, like running, or even when I would do triathlons all the time, it going out, like for me now, going out for a run, sometimes if I'm going through a hard time or a lot of stress, like it helps me meet my pain in the middle. Because I think, at least for me, sometimes even if you know you're going through something difficult, it's hard to want to kind of sit with it and let it release, because let's be honest, it is painful. And we like to be resistant to pain and not deal with pain and avoid it. And I think, as it's human nature now to totally avoid pain, or to just to do what at all costs avoid it. And for me, I know, like when I go out to run, I feel this kind of freedom to, while I may not be in like a physical pain yet, it somehow for me releases like that hardened shell I've kind of put within myself of not allowing myself to release it. And it kind of tunnels its way into like, I'm like, it like opens up just organically. I'm like, and I've done the same. Like I've honestly like gotten like teary-eyed on multiple occasions on multiple runs, where if I was just sitting at home doing something normal, wouldn't have even crossed my mind. But I do think, at least for me at least, doing something like that frees you to a place to where it makes the pain you're going to feel not as painful, because you're doing something physical at the same time.
Yeah, I can see that for sure, man. All right, I guess we're getting kind of close to the end. What?
I thought you were going to say, I guess we're getting kind of too deep.
Listen, hey,
let's
we
all
can't
just
get too
cry
deep, man.
together, man.
If you think we're getting too deep, you should listen to the podcast we released earlier this week. It was a tearjerker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the road
Everything's relative.
we're going down. I did read 50/50.
Yep.
Were you on the road with Dean?
No, I was not.
Okay.
Yeah, I hooked up with him shortly after he completed that journey.
Okay. So, of course I read it, and I was just curious as to, I mean, that's like 50 marathons in 50 days. I mean,
yeah.
How somebody can do. I just wonder if you talked to him much lately, how he's doing. I mean, is he still not at that pace, obviously, but is he still hammering it? Do you know?
It's been a little while. I mean, we definitely keep in touch. It's been a while since I caught up with him, but like he's definitely on his path. I mean, he's an interesting story because, as people know from his first book, he would kind of got a late start in running, but once he kind of had that early midlife crisis, that I fully expect that to be the path he continues to tread for the duration. So I would be surprised to hear that he's like stopped running and gotten fat.
Yeah. No, me too. I got to tell you, I mean, just to be honest, I mean, I didn't realize when Robbie met you that you had written that book, and that was a huge motivator for my first Ironman.
Cool.
2013. Yeah, I identified obviously with his story because I was a late starter as well, but that book in particular and the way you wrote it, it was just, I really enjoyed it. So
glad to hear that.
Yeah, man.
I'll ask it because Mike probably forgot, but you, as far as you did, I know your website says Team Iron Cowboy.
Yep.
And the part that most fascinated me about that entire thing was the ability to recover.
Yep.
And from your personal experience and knowledge, like, how much were you involved in that journey, and like, how was the recovery, and like, just your overall viewpoint?
Yeah, I only connected with James, I think on day 39. It was when he and his crew got to the point where they thought he was going to make it, that they started to think about the future, and they knew they wanted to do a book. So one of his crew reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you know about this Iron Cowboy guy? Would you be interested in helping him tell the story?" And of course I was. So I went out they said, "Well, come on out here, join the party." But I couldn't just drop everything. But I did go out for day 50, and I witnessed day 50, and I ran the last marathon with him. And man, anyone who's done an Ironman, if all you have to do is give them the headline, man does 50 Ironmans and 50 states in 50 days, and you get it. But I tell you, like, I ran just that one marathon with him, and I didn't want to think about exercising the next day. I'm like, oh my goodness, I just did 1/3 of one day.
Yeah.
And I'm toast. But I can tell you with recovery, James, he's made it an art form. So his philosophy, and this totally makes sense if you're trying to do something that most people would consider humanly impossible, he threw everything at recovery. So part of it was the fitness. He was incredibly fit. He trained properly, but he did the compression boots. He was getting body work done everywhere. He was just very kind of scientific with his nutrition, though. Once he got out there and he realized, where do I get 12,000 calories? Well, fast food's got a lot of calories.
Yeah.
So there was some of that, but yeah, he takes recovery very, very seriously. And I doubt he could have done what he did if he was more, lackadaisical.
Man. Yeah, I didn't forget, by the way, Robbie.
I'm just checking. I know you're getting up there in age. I just like to help you out.
Well, if I didn't have the butter coffee, who knows where I'd be? It's going right to my brain, build my brain cells.
Right to your brain is made of fat. Don't forget it.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, by the way, I have a comedic poetry book that I want to share with you maybe some point.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm all ears.
Well, all right. We'll connect that.
Streets?
I never told you that, did I?
No.
Yeah, that's kind of how I passed a year one time. Was writing. I was really influenced. I don't know if Bukowski is considered.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was in that kind of role.
Yeah. Sure. Well, as I matured, I sort of went from Shel Silverstein toward Bukowski as well. I don't know if matured is the word, though, is it?
I don't know. See, I can't ever figure that out either. I guess the best thing to do is it's like walking the edge. It's a little dangerous to go there, but it's kind of fun, I guess.
In a good way, yes.
So Boston's next, huh?
Yes. Yeah, I'm excited.
Obviously you've run it before.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's kind of the reason I became a runner. My dad ran it for the first time in 1983. I ran the last mile with him and crossed the finish line. I was 11, and I was just sprung on the whole running thing, like instantly. So yeah, I mean, it's a legacy for me. I used to take the day off from school in high school to go down and watch it. I've covered it a million times. I watch it every year, no matter where I am, if only on television. And this will be my third time running it.
Very cool. And you're from New Hampshire, you said?
Yep, New Hampshire. Yeah.
I spent a summer on Lake Winnipesaukee as a camp counselor.
Never heard of it.
No, come on. It's a beautiful lake. You should go see it.
Was that the year you dabbled in comedic poetry?
No, I was a camp counselor.
You were a camp counselor?
Oh yeah. See, I got a little coaching background.
We should have Matt. We're gonna have you on more often. I learned all these things about Mike that I never knew.
Well, I write 5 books a year, so I have plenty of reasons to come back.
Perfect. At least every quarter.
Love to. Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else, Robbie?
No, that you covered all of my mystique for the marathon questions.
Well, good luck. Well, that book, you have any timeline for that book?
No, I don't. I should just leave it at that. But it, me, it won't be long.
Yeah, that's true. You got. We'll link to all your stuff, and there's about 100 books out there that he's written that you can go buy. So go do it. I'm gonna
Matt,
be the
thanks
first
for taking
one.
the time, man.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
thanks
it.
a lot, buddy. All right. Well, good luck at Boston, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Peace out.
Thanks, Matt. See you guys.